Yeah, he said thanks for the current response. So if you're I didn't. You told me this now.
right there.
This meeting to order.
Next week, we're going to
Louder, boss.
Oh, come on.
Yeah.
Hit that down.
Right. She heard it. All right, we'll skip the Pledge of Allegiance, moment of silence. We already did that this morning. So we have roll call.
Commissioner Ansargi.
Here.
Commissioner Rushton.
Present.
Chairman Bonnick.
Here.
Commissioner Wessel.
Here.
Commissioner Sudislittle.
Here.
Commissioner Rettenbach.
Here.
Commissioner Lautner.
Present.
All present.
Thank you very much. That brings us to public comment. Please come forward.
Marion Krumkowski, Leelanau County Probate Judge. And I'll just take a couple moments of your time. Just want to let you know that after 32 years of service to the county, Susan Richards has provided me with a letter of her intent to retire on or about the end of the year. So a job posting will be going out, and we will be accepting applications for the probate register until October 11th. And it is our hope to have someone on board by December 2nd. Whoever we do choose to hire may have to give notice wherever they're working, so hopefully no later than December 2nd. We will also be submitting by September 24th an EDS to cover the overlap when we have a new person on board, and we would like Ms. Richards to stay on for a 2 to 3 week period to have a smooth transition. So the job posting will go up probably later today, and I just wanted to, maybe you've already heard through the grapevine or whatever, but yeah, I want to thank Susan Richards for her 32 years. I don't know if anyone has more seniority. I was wondering about Ms. Crocker.
And the maintenance director.
And the maintenance. Okay, so she's maybe third in line. But that is the update, and just thought I'd tell you all formally. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Any other public comment? Seeing none, we'll move on with our agenda, which is a special meeting. It's actually just a work session, so we'll go to first item is the Park and Recreation. And Casey, did you want to come forward?
Sure. Let me just start by giving an update on Scott Bradley. He stopped by last Thursday or Friday. He's making progress from this injury. For those who didn't know, Scott Bradley, our maintenance worker, was injured in the park about 2 weeks ago. His right wrist is broken. He still has some numbness on his left side of the body, but the doctor hoping it's due to swelling. Other tests came back that no other significant long-term injuries. He sees some specialists on his fingers and his hands and about the numbness, but they're predicting probably out for 2 months. Because until he gets feelings back in his hands, obviously he can't work. So we just wish him the best and keep him in your thoughts and prayers, and he's making progress. He's in good spirits, but and he has no memory of what happened. And so it's, I guess, pretty common to have that type of accident. But fortunately, there was cell service, and he could call 911. And because of where he was in the woods, this is how critical communication is in technology. They were able to find him only because they could ping off his phone to find his exact location. Because when they asked him where he was, he had no memory of where he was located. So only because of that technology that they were able to find him. And we kept people online with him until the Cedar Fire Department came and rescued him. But he's making good progress.
I just talked to him yesterday. He's in good spirits. He's ready to go back to work.
Yeah, he's a little bored, I think. But
Quite bored, yeah.
it's kind of tough to work if one hand is in the cast and the other one's numb. So
He's looking for one-handed hobbies, he told me.
He does have a good sense of humor.
He does.
Yeah. I think last week you asked for more detailed updates about the Parks and Rec's budget for 2020, and Casey is the chair, and I know several of you are members. I think Mr. Christian is a member of the Parks and Recs also. And then there was discussion about that part-time custodial maintenance position in the parks. And one of the things I want to bring up is, as you know, you authorized me to go enter into negotiation with D&W about an expanded role for potentially Gary O'Connor. I've had one positive meeting with the owner of D&W, have another one scheduled for tomorrow. One of the things that Jerry Coleman and I talked about, if we were able to expand Gary's services and hours spent, that actually would free up the other people here to do more work. So I don't have an agreement, I don't have a proposal yet, but we're thinking that if we were able to successfully negotiate an agreement to have Gary here more often, that would free up our other two people to spend more time at the park. And so maybe we're able to cover those hours anyway with a new revised schedule of people and what their duties and responsibilities are. So we're working on that. Hope to come back next month with a proposal with D&W. And we're talking about potentially Gary being here up to 4 days a week for the next 2 years because of all these projects here. But if it is that, we would get a straight monthly fee like we do for our legal counsel, like we do now with technology. And that would obviously be part of the monthly fee, so there'd be no additional cost for his services. But if we did that, we may be able to free, assuming next summer that Scott's back to his regular schedule, Delaney is, we may be able to free up their hours a little more to provide that same type of coverage and use those dollars to reconfigure this potential partnership with D&W. But I'll have more information on that in the next week or two on that. So we are working on a plan to cover those hours. We're thinking, Jerry's, I think is correct, we're gonna have a tough time finding someone who just wants to work part-time with no benefits during the summer months. And so we're still looking at options, but we all agree that it was a benefit to have David out there cutting grass because that freed up Scott to do other issues.
So yeah, that was a huge benefit.
I do want to thank Jerry and Dwayne, who's not here, because they've been covering for Scott in the parks. The grass is getting cut, and this is the time of year where it's not growing that fast anyway. But like the soccer fields are being mowed, so we're still covering all those services now. It just creates an extra burden for Jerry and for Dwayne. But they're up to it, right, Jerry? Yes, sir. So that's a brief update there.
Just to clarify, Gary O'Connor will remain an employee of D&W.
Oh, well, yeah, we don't have an agreement, but
Okay.
yeah,
That's the consensus?
yes.
Okay.
yeah.
Sorry about
Yes.
that.
That's okay. I'm here to answer your questions. Chet said that you guys had some questions last week. I'm open to
Maybe you
any.
could start off with, you mentioned to me that there's a lot of projects that the Park and Recs Commission wants to do, and that they're working on.
Yeah, and we,
for the financial
you guys obviously
allocations of
approved
dollars.
the Old Settlers Grub Shack remodel, which was hoped to be completed this year, but trying to find a contractor to do it has not been easy. We have a contractor, he's going to start on it next summer at some point, or early spring to midsummer. And basically what we're running into right now is everybody's a year out for the most part. And we have projects that we want to do, and it's been a little bit difficult to get things figured out as to what budget year they're actually going to fall under. That's when we start the project. You know, we go out for bids and we don't get any bids, and then, you know, trying to find a contractor to do it has not been easy. And like I said, everybody is pretty much a year out that I've talked to, or they look at it and, oh yeah, I'd like to do it, but I'm so busy I have no idea when I could get to it. So that's kind of where we're at. That'll be a nice one to get off the list. We have a grub shack at my house, Kimberly, that needs to be remodeled, that's getting in disrepair, or not disrepair, but needs a new roof, new siding, and there's many other projects on our list that we want to get done. And
Commissioner Ansari?
We have a lot of expenses going on right now
I
here.
understand.
And, you know, the $30,000 for next year, you know, I'm having a hard time putting that big increase in there for next year when we got all this other stuff that we got to pay for that we've already made a commitment for, millions of dollars worth. So, you know, I was looking at it and saying, you know, we may have to spread this out a little bit and not do as much next year and keep the allocation the same for next
well, and
year.
as far as the increase in money that we ask for is more for the contractual and maintenance line items, which we've been incurring a lot more costs in the last couple of years. The contractual services go up every year, and we've been dealing with that in and out. And our maintenance problems have been kind of one on top of the other as far as large items, water repairs, tree removal. We've got quite a bit of cleanup to do yet at Miles Kimberly from the logging. That wasn't a very clean project. They destroyed a lot of stuff and a lot of small stumps along the trails that need to be taken care of, but it's quite a costly project to incur, to have somebody go in there and do the cleanup. Scott's been working on it, and that's, I'm sure, how he got hurt, but also it's kind of an in-between as he gets time. But that's what the increase was mainly for. I mean, our capital line items tried to keep that the same.
It was a 50% increase, so that's...
But that's kind of, we're following fairly closely as to what we've been incurring in costs. I mean, we try not to go overboard in our requests. And because I mean, obviously, I know very well you guys have some pretty big expenditures.
Yeah, I think the line item is capital.
Capital outlay.
Capital outlay, yeah, that's what I think it went up. You said 50%. I was trying to just name off some of the projects that we're not even going after that we've got.
Well, no, we've got obviously we have a long wish list of things that we'd like to complete at the parks, and those are kind of on the back burner until we can get the grub shack done at Miles and Old Settlers, and those are both they're going to take up a pretty large majority of our capital outlay budget. And also we are setting aside the $10,000 out of that capital outlay to roll back every year for the Veronica Valley grant, which we're planning on applying for again next year. And that we had committed to that, and we're continuing to commit to that. So that knocks us down to the $35,000 out of the $45,000, and then you get a $30,000 project on top of that. I mean, I understand your concerns. I very well understand that, but it's my job as the Parks and Rec chairman that I need to vouch for what we need, and it's up to you guys to make the ultimate decision. But I certainly try not to go overboard and ask for the bare bones of what we are needing.
Right. Well, I guess, and my concern is that the Park and Rec promised to set aside $10,000 for that grant, but then they asked for a $30,000 increase. So, I mean, to me, that's not setting aside $10,000. You're asking for the money up front for the 3 years that you're going to set aside. So you're actually asking for $90,000 to cover a $30,000 commitment that you were going to make. And it's not coming out of your budget at all, it's coming out of the increase.
I mean, we are still committed to keep setting aside that $10,000 going forward. It's not.
Well, right, but
We had said 3 years, but obviously I know that doesn't cover a $90,000, and we understand that as a commission.
I guess maybe I'm not explaining that right, but I'm not seeing, we're trying to hold everything to the same, and then, and you promised, promised to set aside $10,000, but instead of setting aside $10,000, you asked for $30,000 more. So I guess I'm opposed to raising it $30,000 when we're trying to ask everybody to hold the same, and the Park and Rec is asking for a tremendous, to me, a huge increase percentage-wise.
I understand.
That's just, so I don't see the set-aside in this budget at all. Commissioner Weston.
We've spent a lot of time on the Parks and Recreation Commission, and part of our budget requests are taking care of those things like our roof repair up here, or our HVAC system here. They're capital improvements that were never really built in to the Parks and Recreation budget, but at some point you need to resurface tennis courts, and you need to repair buildings that need repair, and recoat roofs that are leaking. So I don't think, we're not asking for operational money, we're asking for capital improvement money to take care of some, I think, pretty serious needs.
Commissioner Law.
Yes, thank you. I see this ultimately as only a $20,000 increase over 18. So, and they're really only 10 over
we don't have audited for 19 yet, but maybe 10 over 19 in the early numbers. So the difference to me is the grub shack. And what we don't know is if we'll get donations for that. And we're hoping to get some donations in from that from neighbors. So, you know, that could help. There's been years where we haven't used the entire budget, and this may be one of those years again, if sometimes the weather gets in the way, or getting contractors, like Casey said, gets in the way, or getting help. But knowing what's on the plate for Parks and Rec, I can't see where we're going to cut it anywhere. Just because there's a lot of need, and there's a lot of projects we're just not going to get to. They just keep getting shuffled
And
back.
they've been getting pushback since I've been on the
Mhm.
board.
Any other questions? All right, well, I guess that's good.
Okay.
That's all it was, really.
Thank you. Good seeing you guys.
Casey. Yeah,
Thank you.
good to see you, Casey. All right, so then that brings us to the Register of Deeds.
Good afternoon.
Afternoon.
Public reference?
She will be public records, let me get you to the page.
No, there she is. 46.
Well, let me start off. The question was asked for people in the audience. How has technology and the new software purchase that you acquired impacted your staffing and operations in the Register of Deeds office?
Okay. The new software has kind of overwhelmed us. I mean, it was a lot of learning to do. We actually have 2 systems now that we're learning, and we have to balance and keep track of because we have a hosted website instead of Ron or Leah hosting the website. It's just been a real long learning process, but we're getting there. We're getting there. It was mostly done to help the public. You know, they gives them more search capabilities. It gives them a better online experience searching. Hopefully, it's going to bring in a little more revenue. There's a lot more features that the old system had that the new one, or the old system didn't have that the new one does. So it gives us a little easier for indexing. It's a little easier workflow, so we know where we're at in the process. Just because you get new software doesn't mean the work goes away. So we're always going to have the same work. We're always going to have the same process that we're going to have to go through with every document, and it just all takes time. So we're busy. So.
Commissioner Ansel.
Part of the concern was, we have been automating, things to make it easier, quicker. The more the public can do without having to come here, the less you need to wait on people.
Well, we're still waiting on
Well,
people.
that's my question.
Yeah.
How many visits are we seeing? Are we seeing more? Are we seeing less? Do you keep track of that?
I do
track
have,
how many
we
people
have
come
been
in?
we have a sheet and we do have people sign in. Granted, they all don't, sign in and we don't touch them.
From year to year,
But-
probably.
I think we're getting more because there's a lot more going on in the county. We're getting, a lot more second homes being built, so those are more deeds, more mortgages, more discharges, more mortgage assignments, more liens, more, construction liens, those commencements that are all being recorded in the office. So the larger the county builds, the busier we are getting.
So you are not seeing a decrease in
No.
foot traffic coming through the door?
No, or passports. We have a lot of people coming in for passports, and we have a lot of people coming in with renewal passports who are asking us to review them for them before they mail them out, and we're happy to do that. And that takes time, 15, 20 minutes probably for just one application. So if you get a family of 5, you've got somebody at the counter, probably close to an hour helping a family make sure they've got all the paperwork that they need to send in with their passport application. So. We're doing more indexing. Like I said, we've got more fields that we're filling in. We're with the hosted, we have more online accounts that we have to manage and balance every morning, every night, more reports that we never had to do in the older system, but it makes things a little more transparent for, the county and reporting and for us. Where before, if somebody came in and they had 7 copies, we went to an Excel spreadsheet, put in 7. Now we actually have to kind of reseed it in, puts it in the program, makes it more searchable, and then when they come and pay, we receipt that in. It's taking a little bit more time, but it's being more transparent, so.
Commissioner West.
Yeah. Hi, thanks
Hi.
for being here. We've talked about the Register of Deeds office on and off for the last couple of years. And we had conversation about, on a long-term plan, might we combine that office with the clerk's office? We have a number of people that have needs in this county, and so we also have the responsibility of looking at every department and seeing if there's any flexibility to share staff, reduce staff, share job responsibility. And frankly, I think there is, but I'd like you to take a minute and tell me why I'm wrong.
Whoa, because you can't do a lot of cross-training between registered deeds. You can't have just somebody come in the office and know how to read a legal description and how to index it. I can't see having a floater even come in the office part-time. How do you train them? They're not deputized, they can't, record anything. And we're so busy enough that I don't know that, I've got 3 staff. One of them gets 20 days vacation plus, personal time, and the other one I think is at 15 days plus your 12 days personal time. Bereavement, there's lots of times that, Wanda and I were the only 2 there a couple weeks ago, and we did not open the mail for 2 days because we were so backed up. And I don't like that because the title companies want the documents recorded in a timely manner and online so that they can do their searches and their commitments for, their clients. And if we have less staff, we are not going to be efficient enough, and the customers are going to be the ones that suffer. The title company, the constituents, they're going to be the ones that are going to suffer.
I think you were going to bring us some comparison data.
I did.
Could we take a look at that?
Mm-hmm.
I think we received this in an email, I'm pretty sure.
No.
Wasn't it? Was it this or was it something different?
It wasn't this.
Oh.
We've done this with other departments and offices.
Oh.
Do you want me to share?
No, it's okay.
One short.
One short.
No, that's okay, you keep yours, Tony gave me this.
I actually have another one, or I can.
Mona and I can share. It's all right.
I have one. I made sure I had enough room. So while I asked for the number of employees, like Chuck suggested, I also asked each register roughly how many documents they record in a year, whether they do passports or not. And you can see most other registered deeds offices do not handle passports. And then I asked how many hours do they actually work. This does not include if they're open from 9 to 5, it's actual hours. It does not include their lunch. So like Antrim County, they actually work 8 hours, so the office is open 9 hours. So I wanted to make sure this was actual hours that an employee works.
What county was that for 9 hours?
No, like Antrim County, their employees work 8 hours. The office might be open 9, but they are actually only working 8 because of the hour lunch. So that's what that number of hours that the employees actually work column is. So like we work 7 hours, but we're actually open 9, right? 9 to 5. So, but the girls all need an hour lunch, so they actually work. Or is that right? We open 8. We're open 8, but they actually work 7 hours. So that's what that column is, the actual work hours. So you can see, a lot of counties are 8.5, or 7.5 hours. Most, if you'll see, do not do passports, which takes a lot of time. Less number of documents that we record, but, Crawford County, their clerk's employees work in the register of deeds side, she told me. They have, what, 2, but the clerks come on the register side when they're a little, a little bit busier, and I don't know how that works with cross-training with clerk stuff, but, yeah, Michelle just rolled her eyes, so I don't think that's quite right, but, so.
Well, it looks like there's only one other county that's even comparison in sense, it's actually a little larger than ours, that has 4 employees.
Which county are you talking about?
I think it's Charlevoix.
Charlevoix. Yeah.
And
But
there's
you-
also Iosco.
Mhm. But they don't do passports, which
No.
really takes a lot of time. So Michelle knows that. That's where.
It does, and that was transferred from my office to hers because of the birth record
Mhm.
issue that the state came up with, so a lot of it's been transferred to the circuit court records. Some register of deeds have taken over, some counties' treasurers have taken it over. It just depends.
I think we figured we did probably 180 passports last year. That was just brand new ones, that's not counting people coming in with the renewals for us to look over.
Doesn't the
Like
Secretary of
check
State
has
do those as well?
Pardon me?
The Secretary of State, don't they, Sucks Bay?
They do, but you have to make an appointment there, and we don't. And you know how busy they are too,
So you did about 180 last year?
last year. Our office brings in, I've got another revenue sheet. In the last, since I become register in 2013, we have put in excess of what our department used, $1,322,711.79 into the general fund for you to use. So it's not like we're a burden on the general fund. We actually receive in a lot more money than what you budget for us. And we have the automation fund, which saves, automation fund since its inception in 2002 or 3, we have received over $700,000 and only spent $660. But we use that to buy printers, computers, fax machines in the day, all the equipment that our office needs, all out of the automation fund, which is not part of the general fund budget. So that's also money that we've saved the general fund. So I don't know if you're aware of that, and it takes a long time to build that up. $5 for every document goes into that fund. And so it took us a long time to save the money to buy this new software technology. And we haven't even started e-recording, so I can't even tell you how much time it's going to be for tracking those documents and balancing at the end of the day, making sure, because those are going to be all ACH payments, at the end of the day, making sure that, how much we're supposed to get. The next morning, come in and run more reports to make sure that, yes, that amount went into the bank account. We're doing a lot of that we never had to do with the other software, but that's great. It's benefiting, to me, the public a lot more. We're getting people coming in and saying, I really like this software a lot more. I can search everything I need in one screen instead of bouncing from name and library page to a legal screen, search field or legal screech, another page. And it's just, and the work is not going to go away. No matter what kind of software, whether we have the old software, the new software, new technology, whatever, the amount of documents is not going to go away. It's not going to get lower. You see the paper every week, all the names, all the those are just transfers. That's not counting every other type of document that gets recorded in our office. So.
Commissioner West.
And I don't want you to get me wrong. I'm not suggesting that you're overstaffed.
No.
I'm suggesting that our responsibility is look at every department and make sure that the most critical staff shortages are taken care of.
I get that, but I think it would be a disservice to the county, to the residents, to lower staff and not have somebody in the office to answer the phone when we need to, go help them search for a deed when we need to, because if we get cut staff, our obligation is to getting the documents recorded, and if somebody comes to the counter, I'm just gonna have to say, sorry, when we have time, we can look for you, or if we have time, we'll look over your renewal passport, but, and I don't wanna do that. Taxpayers pay us for the service, and I don't wanna do that. So I don't wanna not have to answer the phone.
So I'm looking at then at Mason County, because they also do the passports. They have a population of 29,000 as opposed to ours at 21. And they have 3 staff, where we have 4.
But you know what our population goes up to in the summertime? I can't include, I think saying that Leelanau County only has 21,000 population, that might be in the dead of winter, but not in the summertime when you get everybody with a second home that is coming here and coming into the office and searching for easements because a neighbor put a fence on their property, or, the road commission with this Riddle Street stuff, coming in, and we're trying to help them search for that stuff, or Matt needing, information for a new tower possibly going up, I can't really, I think it's unfair to go by the number of population.
Home sales, that directly affects your department.
Absolutely.
And when our home sales are robust, I would think that your department is a lot busier.
Absolutely.
So when you look at a county like Mason County, are their home sales as robust as Leelanau County home sales?
Well, they say that they do about 7,000 documents a year. I don't know what all those types of documents include, but I'm sure it's deeds and mortgages that go along with, recording a deed. I don't know there's very many people that can buy property and have a mortgage, so. We have a lot of second homes here, that really adds to it. I mean, you look at Dundee, they're borderline, but they only do 5,500 documents a year. We do 20 or 2,000 more than that, It's kind of hard to compare Grand Traverse, but they have a lot more condos and subdivisions and stuff that we do, but, so.
Any other questions? No?
No?
Okay, thank you.
Okay,
Really
if
appreciate
there's
you coming
anything
here.
else that, you need,
And thanks for doing this.
oh, no problem.
Very
It was,
Very
well, it's,
Thank you.
yep, yeah, some of it kind of surprised me too, a little bit, so. But, okay, take care.
Thanks a lot. That'll bring us to the dam authority.
Maybe we should start, because we have a 1:30 conference call with our legal counsel, talk about that first. I'll get them on the line. So I asked them to come, and so we have members of the Dam Authority here. There's people from Lake Association. We have all the commissioners, and it'll be helpful for them to review the process if you choose to do an assessment. There's a legal process you have to go through. In your report, in your paperwork today, I passed out the legal opinion from, I believe it was 2004. Mr. Christensen and I talked to Mr. Stoker and Mr. Perone about 3 weeks ago, Steve?
Yeah.
And they still stand by this legal opinion. So there was no need to update it. They basically sent us an email that says correct. But I thought it'd be helpful, if you choose to go to an assessment, that everyone has the same answers. And if you have any questions from our legal counsel, they'll be glad to answer that. So let me start getting them on the phone. I think it may be helpful if you have questions, and it may be hard for them to hear. You can tell the questions to Steve and I, and we can relay it to the legal counsel. So I'll just take a minute and give them a call right here.
Looks like pretty old technology.
Yes. You want a package or something over we could talk?
Should be remote, shouldn't it?
Phone number here. I think I've memorized it. True. Michelle, do you know what I'm 517-374-6762.
3729,000.
372, that's right.
Try to be helpful. I wore my glasses.
Hi, Gwen Chilchanik. Calling for a 1:30 conference call with Tim and David. Good afternoon, Tim and David. This is Chet Janik. Can you hear me? All right. And you are at a Board of Commissioners meeting, and we have the dam authority members here just to review the process in the event that they wish to do a special assessment district. The board has copies of your correspondence from January 23rd, 2004. And I did tell them that we talked several weeks ago with Mr. Christensen and talked about the process, and that the opinion from 2004 is still accurate. But it may be helpful for everyone if you could just outline the process to do a special assessment, and because of what we have now from the previous assessment, how we can go forward if the board chooses to go forward with an assessment in 2019 or 2020. Are you there? Hello? Hello? Yeah, all right. We'll try again.
Chet, we're having a lot of phone issues
I don't think
today.
you like what you told them.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, exactly.
What's the number?
3729,000.
1517.
Yeah.
517.
Yeah, I got that part. One's busy.
No calls can be put on hold today either.
Phone's busy, so let's just see.
Really?
That's not my area to work. They're just not working. Yeah.
That's the next thing, we're gonna have to buy a new phone system, right?
I know. Don't say that.
Oops, I didn't say that.
All right, we got cut off. Thank you. All right, can you hear me now? We got cut off the first time. All right, let me try again on speakerphone, okay?
Yeah, but you had enough of it.
No, far from it, David. All right, I think we can hear you, correct? All right. So if you could just start off going over the legal process, if the commission chooses to do a special assessment either this year or next year, what are the legal steps that have to take place?
Oh, no.
Are you there? All right, we'll try it this way. Sorry for that. You said our phone system is not working today?
Yeah, there's a ticket order out since this morning, but it hasn't been responded to yet.
Well, all right.
How's your reception?
Well, mine's pretty good in here, and we have this thing, so.
Melinda, put it on your speakerphone.
My phone talks. so
Did you?
I don't know how
Maybe we
to
could
get-
just ask your phone for
Calling
I don't know how to
Melinda,
get
calling
to-
Melinda.
There,
I
Is
don't
your
know how
phone
to get to
speaking?
her again, but she was on there.
yeah, we'll try this way, just gotta find the right.
My phone's not to me that way.
517.
Oh, I got it, I just got it,
I
yeah.
don't even know what I did to the phone, so.
It's when you hold down the bottom button too long.
I'm having phone trouble, so I'm trying for my cell phone now. So let's try again here.
Oh.
All right, thank you.
Hello?
All right, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
All right, let me go on my office here and show you this works. All right, let's try again. I guess we're having technical difficulties, so I'm calling from my cell phone. Could you go over the legal process if the board chooses to set up a special assessment district this year or next year?
Well, the boundaries of the special assessment district have already been established for the maintenance of the normal lake level of Lake Leelanau, which would include then the need for maintenance and repairs to the Leland Dam for those purposes of maintaining that normal lake level. You may need to update the names on that, and if there's been any changes in the configuration of properties, a land division or combination, things like that.
But basically, using the same district map that was previously approved, it's just any change in ownership. You need to have the names and addresses current.
This is because you'll have to give notice of a public hearing to all property owners in the district in advance of the public hearing, as well as publication of notice of the public hearing, at least 10 days ahead of time. You will want to do a computation of costs. That would be all costs necessary for your purposes that you want to put into the special assessment, and that would allow you also to put a contingency in there, and it would be all costs, including legal, engineering, costs of administering the special assessment.
And if you're doing any financing on it, it would be, the interest and bond cost too. Ultimately, once you get that cost, you'll have a method. There's probably a method already in the system for allocating costs to everybody in the district. Use that same formula unless you feel it needs to be changed.
Do we have the option of changing the formula from the last assessment? That question has been brought up.
You probably could. That would, you're doing an assessment on the cost, and of course that becomes another issue of the cost. That's right now an established system. If you're going to change that, you're going to have the public hearing on how you're now going to do it, plus what every individual is going to pay, and that creates a couple different issues then, rather than just what your share is. And you've got to establish, becomes an issue, is the new way a correct way or not? Arguably that's an issue of the old one too, but it's already established. So it would make it another issue. You'd have to decide, you hold a public hearing, explain what you're doing, what the costs are, what the estimates are, and how your formula works, and then you have the rule, everybody can look and see what their costs are going to be. And then you can decide to go forward or to do something different. I think there's more than one public hearing.
No, there just needs to be one, but you have to have publish the notice twice in the newspaper. The first one at least 10 days ahead of the hearing, and of course you have to mail notice to all of the affected property owners.
So, the first steps are how much, what are the actual costs, not only the project costs, but as Tim mentioned, the ancillary costs like engineering and legal, and if there's any financing costs, administrative costs, all of that's going to be covered by the assessment. And that is how you're going to spread it. And
Two questions that were forwarded to me. One is, for how many years can we have assessment? Does it have to be a specific number of years, or can we go on for a lengthy period to cover the cost? And two, because the last assessment, can the funds be used only to repairs for the dam, or can other projects on the lake be included in the assessment district?
Well, there's a couple different parts of that. How long, yeah, you're gonna need to put an assessment on how long. But you're gonna have that sort of calculated in your cost. You can't keep adding to the project. You've got a district, so you don't have to keep, you don't have to recreate the district each time you have a project.
Okay, but how about ongoing annual costs? Can they be included? Let's say for the next, I just make this up, for the next 10 years, we know we spent, is it about $8,000 per year, Steve, for the dam? Can we just include that and have that 8,000 continue for many, many years without going back? Or does that have to be for specific projects?
I think it would have to be on what your project is in advance. How you define the project to give you a little flexibility, though, because that's your sort of second question. Does it have to be on the dam? Well, it has to be something to deal with the lake level, maintaining the lake level, which includes the dam, but it could be something else dealing with the lake level, too. If you indicate when you set it up that that's what you're going to use it for. You got to be uses authorized by statute, but the statute's pretty broad, too.
Yeah, and if it's beyond the categories, they have to be specifically itemized.
Okay, so we could not have a plan that just puts money in capital outlay for future projects down the road that we are not anticipating at this point.
No, I don't think so. Now, if you're anticipating some ongoing maintenance or ongoing construction or something on the current use, you could put that cost in up front. So, you know, you're gonna have to have the engineer inspect what you've done every year, and it's gonna cost you $800 every year for the project you're putting in, the dam repairs. You could put that as part of the initial cost, and you'd have the money, and you'd be able to spend it then. But I don't think you can add on the project to do capital things.
How about utilities?
Can utilities be included?
Is that, or looking at utilities up for the monthly electric bill?
I believe there's an internet charge there because you're monitoring the sensors, correct, Steve?
Yeah, and there's maintenance, checkup on the sensors, checkup on the computer,
Operating.
just standard things we do every year.
Yeah, it's operational. Can those be included?
Cost for operating the dam can be included. But what you need to do is get an estimate of what those costs are going to be for the next 10 years and put them in right now.
All right.
So basically, we have to have specific projects. We can't assume that in 8 years, we may have to do this. We have to be fairly specific on what the money would be allocated for, correct?
Yes, but you've essentially got a district already. If some new project that comes along and totally unexpected, you can do this process all over again and have a second special assessment.
And the assessment cannot be retroactive, right? We can't go forward and do a project this year and have the assessment start next year, for example, correct?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah. The only thing that can be is engineering fee and legal fees, right?
You've got to establish the special assessment role and approve the cost before work is done on the project, before work is begun on the project.
But you're right, the planning of the project would then definitely be included, but not planning for a different project.
Correct. Okay.
If we have a project that takes several years to complete, but we get those costs up front, that would qualify under the assessment.
Did you hear that? Shall I repeat it? Yeah.
Sure, yes. Even if you're going to need 10 years of inspections, you can figure it's going to be $1,000 a year, so you can put $8,000 in there to cover now you might be wrong, you might estimate wrong, maybe the cost will go up, but you could have a fund to cover that as part of the operational cost. But you need to establish it up front, because you're having a hearing on those costs up front, and they need to have a right to say that costs are reasonable or unreasonable, or, something to that effect. But they need to know what those numbers are.
Is there a limit? Is there a limit for how long you can do the assessment?
Yeah, I don't think there's a limit that I'm aware of as far as just plain years, but it would be life of the project more or less. You've got to have something you can't say for the next 120 years or something, even though you might still be doing this 120 years from now. You've got to kind of dovetail it into the project up front.
Well, what you're really thinking about is the number of annual installments you're going to be assessing on the property owners. So it would normally be in a range of 10 years, I suppose 20 years if it's...
Yeah, and again, it depends on how you're going to do this, because if you're doing this, if you're borrowing for it, it's probably going to be tied to what your bonds are, in your bonds. If you're doing your bonding costs, get your bonding amount enough to cover these issues, but what you're doing with the special assessment, that is basically paying off the bond.
Any other questions?
No, I don't see any.
Steve?
You were aware that you can add a 15% contingency on the cost that you've already computed as a contingency.
Steve, you have a question?
Yeah, and I think I got the answer. I just want to confirm it. The lake is in the process of figuring out how to deal with Eurasian milfoil. And if I had the answer right, this assessment district is only for lake level and not other types of projects.
Did you hear that?
Part of it I heard.
What would be the example of the other project?
Eradicating Eurasian milfoil.
Oh, no. No, that doesn't sound like that's pertaining to the lake level. That's like a separate lake district or a separate purpose.
There's actually another statute that allows for lake maintenance. Yeah, it's a whole different structure. A lot of times they overlap. You'll have the same boards even dealing with it, but there is a ability to deal with lake maintenance. That's a different statute than lake level. Operates pretty similar, but you have to rate the district, and I'm assuming you haven't done that. There is a ability that they can do a special assessment for lake maintenance under a different statute.
Any other questions?
We can send you that statute if you'd like to see it.
Yes, please do, please do. All right, thank you, Dave and Tim. I think that's all the questions that we have.
We're also that if it proves that the revenues are insufficient to meet the computation of cost or to meet your bond obligations, you can reassess without a hearing using the same apportionment.
But again, that's your cost of your project where you end up being too high. Not that you added something new to the project.
Right.
A summary would be good on those main points that we can use the assessment. The years aren't limited, but they should be practical. We can change the formula.
Can you speak up?
Oh, I just was suggesting to you.
Yeah,
Just a
we do
summary.
A summary.
A summary.
We'll do a summary of this.
Of the main points.
Let's get some more questions.
My question is, do most counties use this formula? Or do some counties just choose to spread the costs equally among all the riparian owners?
Did you hear that question?
Doing it equally is a formula in itself.
So there has to be a formula.
Well, in theory, with special assessments, they are looking for the benefit, though. So the question is, if someone's got a lot more frontage or a lot more usage, is there a basis for saying that they should have a higher versus someone who's, off lake or doesn't have the same access? Those can be pretty contentious at who gets what. That's why, and again, we don't know what your current formula is.
Okay, Steve, could you go over the current formula? This might be helpful.
Yeah, currently, if it's usable, it's 100%. If it's separated from the lake by a road, 80%. If it's unusable, it's 10%.
Okay. And that, you know, there's a rationale for that, that has been established and accepted. So, you know, there's some base, it's probably easier to continue to use that. Obviously, you could, if you had some reason to say that 10% people now have more access, or they ought to be getting 25, you're going to have to articulate why you're going to make the change. Or why the people off-road, you know, should be paying more or less than they are currently. So you would need some rationale to explain that, and then that would be part of the public hearing, you get to explain it and like it or not like it. If you're going to just continue it, your public hearing, you lay out the cost and you lay out what the existing formula is, and you wouldn't necessarily have to go into as much detail on why you're changing the numbers as you would if you make a change.
But to go 50% county and then the other 50% divided by these percentages, as Steve explained, is that the most common formula?
Okay, we in the county, in the past assessment, 50% of the cost was covered by the county, 50% was covered by the Lake Association. Is that a common formula?
Special assessment district.
By a special assessment district. Is that a common formula, was the question.
I'm not aware of that being a common formula, no.
All right.
Usually special assessment is not having a county contribution.
All right. So that's a decision that the county board makes, correct?
Unless the county has land on it as part of the, you know, part
Yes,
of the project.
yeah.
If you had a bunch of parks on it or something like that, it'd be different.
But that's a decision the county board can make if they choose to go forward with a special assessment district.
It comes down to, you know, you get the cost and then how much of the cost you're going to assess. So if it costs $1 million and you're going to decide to assess $500,000, there's two issues. One is the $1 million, right? But then the 500, you agree to assume part of it. But there's no obligation to assume it. That gets to be, you know, a political question for you to decide on whether it's overall in the county's interest. It's permissible to do it that way, but it's, I don't see it happening a lot, if you answer your question.
Relating to that,
Please don't have the money.
Yes.
when you say that it usually isn't how it's handled, with it being a shared cost between the county and the assessment district residents, is that when it, I see this as two different types of assessment that goes on. One that benefits kind of the entire community or the entire county because it's used by more than just those people in the district. And then the other example would be like the one I'm in, where there are houses being flooded because of water runoff. Now that is just benefiting a particular group of people, but everybody is in the assessment. And so there's no benefit beyond that particular neighborhood. So when you say that it isn't common to share that cost, are you implying across all types of situations or just those where there's not huge community benefit?
And we didn't hear almost any of that, so let me repeat it.
Here, I'll just have Patricia.
David, Patricia. What I was asking is, there are different types of reasons why you do an assessment. Like one I'm in just benefits a series of houses that are being flooded. So that benefit goes to just that neighborhood. In this particular case where we're looking at the dam and all the associated lakes and rivers that are involved in it, they're used by many people, not just the people living on that particular lake or along the river. So my question was, when you said that in response to Commissioner Lautner's question, is it normal to share those costs? Were you referring to in all cases or in just cases where it didn't have a large community benefit?
I think we were just talking about generally. The question was, is that common? The answer is we don't commonly see it. It's a factual question each time for you have to analyze this. That's why you got elected, right? You get to decide that. But from a legal perspective on a special assessment, they look at it. Let's assume someone does the benefits wrong and they're going to appeal it. How do they appeal it? They go to the tax tribunal, and the argument is that the value increase in my property value is not equal to what I'm being required to pay for this assessment. So in other words, if we didn't maintain the lake level, my property would be worth that. That's what they look to for special assessments. So it's basically a value measure, and it's not dollar for dollar. There's some flexibility, but it's really looking at the property owner's value versus the community's, and that's why, in fact, they're being specially assessed. It's a community-wide thing that ends up being a tax. It's a nothing assessment. So it would be tax dollars.
We already have a defined special assessment district that was established for the purposes of maintaining that normal lake level. If you want to expand that special assessment district, you have to go back to court.
Right? But if you're going to just have the county assume part of the costs, probably the rationale would be what you suggested. I imagine that's what happened when they came up with 50%. But again, it's really more a policy issue than a legal. The legal side looks to is in fact that's getting a benefit.
Okay, one more question here.
Is state of Michigan property able to be assessed in this if they are in the district?
That's been a hotly disputed issue over the years. What kind of property is it on the state?
It's the state owns a very large piece of vacant property within the special assessment district.
Are they just holding, or is it a park, or what is it?
It's swampland.
State forest is what it is.
Yeah, it's part of the state forest.
Well, are they being assessed already?
Have they been included in the district?
Is it what?
They were included in the district. The question is whether they can be legally assessed because it's state land.
If they were in the past, I would try to do it again, but they refuse to. It ends up, there's cases that go both ways.
Same as conservancy? What about conservancy property? Did you pay that last time?
No, you're talking because they're tax exempt or something.
Yeah,
This isn't a tax, so.
not a
They
tax.
would probably be subject to it.
And are they the actual owner, or is it privately owned property that's burdened by a conservation easement? Either way, it's subject to the assessment.
Probably a subject. What the state looks to on their property is, is
Privately owned.
use. If it's a road going along there, they're going to assume it's not going to be any benefit, and so they can object to it. Park.
Okay.
They're saying they're not going to be benefit.
Are there any questions? Hello from Dam Authority members? So I think the key points that I got out of this, Tim, David, is we have to have specific projects identified prior to doing an assessment. We can't just ask for general dollars to cover future projects. It has to be a number of years, specific years. We can get reimbursed for engineering and legal fees, but no project can start, and we expect to get reimbursed unless there's an assessment district in place. We can change the formula, but it has to be a more complex process, the public hearing, and we have to have rationale why the formula is being changed.
A further complex issue would be if you change the district, as Tim mentioned. So if you wanted to add properties or take, that makes it much, much more complicated. I would probably leave the district in it as is and just have the owners change. And if we included the conservatories and we included the state property, I would include them again.
Yeah, the state had an opportunity to weigh in on this at the time that the lake level and special assessment district were first established.
The problem with it is, what if the state refuses to pay? The reality is you probably cannot close on it. So you run into an issue with it.
Probably reassess.
Well, we'll just call our legal counsel, have them follow up with them.
Sure.
So if they wanted to fight it, it's probably not very collectible. That's the problem.
All right. Any other questions from anybody? All right, David and Tim, thank you very much, appreciate it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
Let us know if we can do anything else.
Oh,
We'll send them the other statutes.
okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I did ask Rob Herman to come. He has done a lot of work on this behind the scenes the last couple of weeks, couple months probably. Rob, you want to just give the board an update on the work you've done?
Sure.
In terms of the existing district. Come on up here.
Rob? Hi, guys. So, I mapped the parcels from the 2005 assessment for John a couple weeks ago. I think he showed you guys the map. So basically, the thing that I would need to do is figure out all the owners that have changed since then, so we can get the like the current mailing list put together. That's pretty much all I've done though.
And how many parcels are there?
I can't remember. I want to say it's just over 1,000, but I'm not. I'd have to look to verify it. It just follows all the lake all the way around. All the stuff that's right on the waterfront.
And the state property was included?
I would have to check on that as well. I'm not sure.
I believe John said yes. I don't know that for a fact, but I believe
Yeah.
when I talked to John, I believe every parcel was included, even state property.
State's probably in there, and some of the townships as well, I think,
And the
conservancy.
preserves.
Right.
I believe all of them were
Preserves.
included
Okay.
last time.
Right.
I thought so too.
Yeah.
There were 1,510 parcels in 2005.
Okay.
Okay, yeah. But- So there's probably about 40 or 50 that I don't have mapped because of parcel splits, line adjustments, things like that, but it shouldn't take long to track them down. So,
So what was your number you thought you had approximately?
1,500?
No, you didn't know, you didn't count them with what you've been doing so far?
I did, but I have to go look.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
But the district is in place. We could easily fine tune that.
Right, we
specific
could fine
numbers.
tune it. Oh, yeah, so, yes, what I said was, it's like 99 point something. There's like 20 or 40 that I would have to track down, so that shouldn't take too long. And that's just because subdivisions or parcel lot line adjustments, things like that, in the last 10 years, or 15 years.
Steve, could you go over the different types of assessment that's done last time, once again? 'Cause I'm not sure everyone
Yeah.
knows that.
On the 100% side, they're usable, example, buildable, accessible, keyhole usable, available for future. Wetlands may be included in this if traversed by a walkway or path with dwelling at a further other location. 80% is separated, same as above, but buildable portion is separated by a public road. 10% unusable, swamp, inaccessible, unusable.
And the formula was 50% last time from the association, 50% from the county.
Every time that the assessment district has been used since it was set up, the county has paid half. From us going forward, I just assume that we're going to continue with that. It's a precedent, and we've been doing it, and we'll continue forward, is kind of the way I'm looking at it. And that's my personal opinion, it's not the dam authority opinion. We have not had a meeting to discuss it, to make a recommendation to you folks, but
And do you have a list of projects that you wish to accomplish I know the ones that the engineer was here last month, but do you have other projects on top of that you wish to proceed with? He outlined the issue with the water coming in and some OSHA-related items. Are there other projects?
We'll need to wait until the dam inspection and the underwater inspection come in. I expect them in a relatively short period of time. It would probably be a good idea to hold fire on developing that list until those inspections are in place. Beyond that, we've got a roof that needs to be done. And you had seen that before, and we held those funds aside to go along with the proposal that we had before you. And then the future inspections, it's triannual, so every 2 years you have an inspection. And you've got the utilities, and it sounded like the utilities could be gauged for a 10-year span of time and earmarked specifically and included in an assessment or in the overall amount of money we're talking about.
So would it sounds like it would be in our best interest to figure the maximum amount for these projects, and plus what the utilities would be, you know, what engineering would be, and all of that, and put this into this special assessment district, that amount, because it has to be specific, and then maybe set it up to ask for it over a 10-year period or something. I mean, that's the way it's sounding like to me, that we need to go for the maximum we can, but they have to be specific projects, specifically items, specifically set up, because
we can include a contingency, and it would be the amount of money that we, as the county and the district, are looking at spending for the lake level of maintaining the lake level, I guess is the way you'd look at it. You know, I think the county originally looked at picking up half the cost. Both those projects were relatively significant. The first one, I think, $400,000 or $500,000. The second one, close to $1 million. So those were really large ticket items. County looked at it originally. If the county hadn't stepped in originally to get the lease on the dam, and then secondarily to purchase the dam for very low, they had to get ownership to do the second project. The possibility of having the boards pulled and just let the lake go down was there. The entities that were involved weren't able to or wanting to step up to the plate. They really didn't have the resources to do what we could as a county. So the county looked at it and said, okay, how important is Lake Leelanau to Leelanau County? And it runs a very significant portion north and south on the lake. You've got all the riparians, you've got all the property that can see the lake. You've got all of what you like and what I like and what we like as people in the county, the water and the water resources. The county thought at that point in time that it was important to have this lake be stable. And the lake level needs to be adjusted, which was the first thing. The second was we need to have the dam that works. And so the County Board of Commissioners stepped up to the plate, said, okay, we're going to take on half of this. So that happened twice, and they were very large ticket items. Now you as a board will have to decide where you go from here and what's important to you as a county commissioner and what is important to us as Leelanau County residents. Almost all of you, all but 2 of you, have people on the lake. So it's wide ranging. They're here in the room. What are you going to do? Are you going to say, okay, if it's over a certain amount, we're going to go 50-50. If for this one, maybe we go 30-70. When we hit a certain level, it's 40-60. When we hit a certain level, it's 50-50. And that whole discussion is really probably why you bring this here and why we are here. You need to decide how important it is to you for the county to step up and be partners with the Lake Special Assessment District, as you have twice before. So that's really where we're at. What do you want? What do you feel? How important is this for you? How important is this for the county?
Commissioner Answer.
Many other places, they're removing dams. There's, the tribe is very vocal in that they want the dams removed. In many places, have they weighed in on this dam?
River flow and dam on rivers is a very important topic, and it's an entirely different topic than the one we're talking about today. We're talking about a dam that is on a lake, not a river. So it's a very different thing, but
No.
It's a lake because they dammed the river, right?
My point being, there's an alternative out here to remove the dam.
and that's what you would like to do.
I'm not saying that's what I want, but I'm saying there is another alternative out there to remove the dam, assuming you can get around the court order.
You're saying that you would like to consider this option?
No, I'm just saying there are other alternatives out there.
You are saying this is a viable alternative that you'd like to look at?
Other places have removed dams, right in Grand Traverse County.
You are saying
as
it's
you
a
know.
viable
This is not,
opportunity?
we shouldn't be having a conversation like this. One
No.
can speak and then the other one.
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
You're-
it is a court order at the lake level, so I don't know that we could remove it without going to court. But it's not a time for arguing, it's a time for stating things, all right? Was there someone else? Yes, Commissioner Lott.
Well, I was just going to say that question did come up when we put the new dam in. Is should we be damming it or should we be letting it go? As a lot of groups have wanted that to happen. Case in point, the Boardman. So they're pulling those dams, they want to do it. And there is a group of people that does want that. I think this lake is protected by the court order. I don't think we could make that decision. You have to get around. But the point is, but the question then becomes, does the county want to be a partner at 50%, or does the county want to be in at 40% or 30%? Because that begins the next question is, what's the value to anybody that doesn't live on the county or on the lake as opposed to somebody who does live on the lake? Is their value really 50% if they drive by the lake, twice a year or twice a week? If they don't swim in it, don't boat, don't use it. So what is the outerlying county's value to that lake? Is it really 50%? And I know that there were a lot of people who didn't want the county to kick in at 50% the last time. So this is a little bit different. It's not going to be as much money as the dam was, but it's something to consider. What is the value? We can relook at that. It might be closer to 30%. I'm not sure.
I think Steve makes a good point. We have a history of having done it twice at 50%, and in a way, since as someone was reminding me, it's still taxpayer dollars paying for it, everyone's taxpayer dollars. So those taxpayers are going to pay the 50 that are on the lake and on the Cedar River and the village of Cedar and the Lake Leelanau Narrows and the Leland River leading to the dam. That those people are not only going to pay the 50%, but they're also going to pay through their taxes. So they are being assessed more because they're being assessed as the collective taxpayer, and then they're being assessed the special assessment. So I think picking up 50% by the county certainly honors what we've done in the past, and in my way of thinking is a much fairer way to do it.
Commissioner Ansel.
The whole concept behind a special assessment is that those properties that are being assessed receive a benefit. And it has to be an economic benefit. It's not just, oh, I like this. They have to be able to demonstrate an economic benefit in order to be assessed. It's just the way the court has interpreted special assessments. They must receive a benefit, and it must be an economic benefit. If we look at it from that standpoint, what is the economic benefit to the county as a whole? Can we show that this property, by doing this assessment on the lake, I'm not talking about any county-owned property that may be on the lake, but is the assessments associated with that benefit 50%? I can't see that. I can't see that even being close. Nobody else, I have never seen a special assessment that had a participation by the local municipality at 50%. I have never seen one before. And I've appealed special assessments to the tax tribunal and won. So I know a little bit about special assessments.
Commissioner Long.
Yes, I think that we have to have that discussion because we have to be able to identify that economic value to the rest of the county. The old, well, we've always done it this way is not an answer. We have to, I think it has to be reestablished. If it's going to be 50% or if it's going to be 30%, if it's going to be any. And I was talking with an engineer down around, I believe, the Midland area, and there's a dam they were putting in or redoing a dam down there and did the district. And they did it just, every parcel paid the same amount, and that's how they divided it. And they did it all just around this river or dam or whatever they were doing down there. And I thought that was an interesting, a very interesting concept. I'm not promoting it. I hadn't heard of it being done that way. So I think it should all be studied, the formula.
Commissioner Sluice.
Well, Commissioner Ansorgi raises a good point. However, I think you have to look at economic value from the bigger picture. And certainly the county as a whole benefits because we're an attractive place for people to visit. We have a lot of tourism dollars that benefit our community. We're an attractive place for people to come and buy houses and buy property and buy land that don't live on the water, but they have access to the water, and a lot of those people are non-homestead, so they're paying a higher rate of taxes, which benefits the county. So whether it's 50% or not, I don't know. We can probably find somebody who can run those numbers and calculate it, but I think it would be hard-pressed to say that there wasn't a benefit to the county, tangible fiscal benefit to the county for having a participation in sharing costs.
The benefit has to be to the taxpayer. And you can have someone who has a rental.
Commissioner Sluice Little has the floor. I'm sorry.
Oh, I thought she was done.
I don't know.
The taxpayer of the county, I'm responding to Commissioner Wessel's comment that how does the county government benefit, which is supported by the taxpayers, to be specific.
Commissioner Watson.
So my point is that the taxpayers have to have that benefit. And there are some who, as I've said, they really, at least the last time, didn't see a value. They said, I don't boat, I don't swim, I don't care. So, let them pay for it. I'm like, well, there are those points that are made, that there is a value to having a lake. But you've got some people who own homes that are rentals who are paying the non-homestead fee at a big rate. The renter may get that benefit if they go use that lake. But the homeowner, that non-homestead resident of this county may not. So
Just raise the rent.
just raise the rent. That's going to help affordable housing, Carolyn.
I thought you were talking about vacation.
We're in a tough county.
Please, yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. Well, I think sometimes we get involved into mission creep. And here I think where the dam thing keeps growing to where now we're putting it on the internet and we're adding these measuring things at different different parts of the lake with the Lake Association putting them in, but now the expenses come to the county, and, you know, and then now we have to buy internet for at the dam, and, you know, so I do think this, you know, I'm for doing this special assessment myself, but I do think this is more about maintenance of the lake level, and that it's not about benefit to the county, it's benefit to the lakeshore owners. I don't think that Glen Lake, we don't want to start giving 50% for Glen Lake for their dam, or if Little Traverse Lake is overflowing the river, we want to start giving money 50% to Little Traverse Lake, because of there's lakes all through this county, and that we did it because of the amount. I don't think it was because of the fact that we didn't want, you know, we felt the need that it had to be done, that the owners of the dam were going to let it go, just pull the boards out, and the county needed it. There was a real need in a hurry. But now we're talking about maintenance, and, you know, I don't know if you've seen these things from Mr. Popa, which I know he doesn't represent the whole dam authority, but, you know, he's talking $100,000 a year. I don't see where that it'll be that much, but I'm just saying that some of the things that we're doing are beyond the scope of what the court order orders. All it orders is that we keep a lake level at the dam. It's not anywhere else, and we've gone beyond that. And so I would think that if we should get an amount, we should know that what the dam authority wants to do with this. But I don't think the county should be responsible for maintaining it without any money from the special assessment district. I do think we need to go forward with the special assessment district, and we try to figure out what the 10-year expenses are going to be and what this engineer has asked for. And then we look at that and what it's going to cost those property owners if the assessment goes to them, and see if it's not affordable for them. And that, you know, but we're trying to make decisions when we don't even know what the numbers are.
It seems like the next course of action is, A, we need to get the engineering study completed. Yes. The dam authority needs to come up with a very specific list of projects. And then they need to come back to the county board with that. Because we can't, one thing I found out from this telephone discussion, we have to have specific projects. We can't just say we want a 10-year assessment to cover the cost of the dam.
Right.
We need to have very specific projects in place. We have some costs. We know it costs about $7,000 to $8,000 per year. That we know, because of some things that we did add. It used to be less than that. It used to be $3,000 to $4,000 a year. Now it's $7,000 to $8,000. But until we get the engineering study, and until we get a specific list of projects from the dam authority, it may be difficult for us to go forward.
Well, but my concern is these expenses that'll be ongoing, that are costing the county right now because they've used up all the special assessment money.
Yes.
So I'm concerned that how long are we going to wait to get the special assessment? And, you know, and I'm willing to stop the internet, you know, there at $100 a month, to not have us not do all these things until we get this set up. You know, we're paying for things that really should come through the special assessment.
When will the engineering study be done, Steve? Remember?
I'd have to check my documents. It needs to be done by the end of the year, and they know that. I'm assuming that it'll come before that. That's the triennial. It's my understanding that the underwater inspection was completed.
No, I'm talking about that, when Patrick Machen came, we approved that engineering study. When will he have his results back?
I assume that'll be within a couple of weeks. We have two things going on, I think, if I may interject.
Go ahead.
Sorry for before I got off. Anyway, we've got the flood wall and the flooding thing, and that kind of tipped us over to the edge of getting that first chunk of money approved by you folks. And that's going to be back in a couple of weeks. And then we'll probably be asking to move forward on the flood wall issue. And that would probably happen before the special assessment district and all of that. The other that Chet mentioned is that the inspections need to come in before we can put together a list and a recommendation to you folks from the dam authority side. And I'll double check with those and make sure that they're coming as quickly as possible so we can move that as quickly as we can. That seems to be that track, and then the flood wall seems to be another track.
On the flood wall, maybe Jerry can answer this. So you came last month with the photos. The water was several feet tall in that room. And you showed the photos. TV9.
Several inches.
Well, I mean, I'm sorry, several inches tall. Yeah. So TV9 came on to do a story down there, so I took them there so they could actually film the water level, and there was no water down there. So I know it was a one-time. Is that truly a one-time thing, or are we saying we have to proceed with that? Because when I was down there was no water down there whatsoever. And this was a couple weeks after the photos were taken.
Yeah, I know, Chet.
I could shed some light on that, maybe a
Go.
little bit. You know, the seiches that we've been having as these fall storms come through. I was down there about 5 days ago, and water would go up and down, swing by about 2 feet, a foot higher than normal, a foot lower than normal, every 15 minutes or so. And that went on for all morning. And so it would be easy to have that much water in that control room, I think, and then have it dry. You know.
Yeah, I told Chet that I wasn't surprised when 9 and Ted came. That day was the end of a 3-day span of a strong northeast wind. And to see the water, you would need to go to Chicago to see it. And then, of course, it comes back. Last week was, according to Amanda, is Amanda here? No. Who was the Preservation Society chair. I talked with her about this meeting and told her what it was going to be and all, but the week after 9 and 10 was there, we had the highest sage of the year. And this was from Rick, Jerry handed me, from Rick at the Cove. Last week, it covered 4 to 6 inches of the Cove deck. Unconfirmed cheese shanty, 16 inches, and Amanda said there was 1.5 feet in the cheese shanty. So that was the highest amount of water at that location for this season, was a week ago. And Jerry went to check the control room, and there's debris piled up against the door. So you know, I mean, we're up and down a little bit. We're down 2 inches on Michigan here, and down 2 inches in Superior. Thank goodness we're doing a little bit of a natural seasonal cycle down. Ideally, we'll dry up a little bit, and it'll be easier for everybody. But with the seiches, we're going to have water in the control room over the foreseeable future. Next year, we're going to have a lot of water. It's been forecast.
And I guess that's my point. I'd like to get this special, if the county pays for this sub pump and the emergency stuff, we pay for it, we can't get it back through the special assessment. So I would like to see the special assessment get in, the sooner the better, and then we can get that pump and stuff in there. It's, you know, those are things that I think the special assessment district should pay for, and not the county 100%.
And by the direction given to me today, we need to have the inspections come in so we can get the list together, so we can do the special assessment district and have all the money there.
Good.
We need to know it. So I'm just saying the flood wall is going to come before you, before the other. I'm guessing, kind of, but I think it is.
It is what it is.
Yeah. Okay. Were there any other questions?
Could you just find out from Patrick when he will have the study completed? It'd be nice to know.
It would be. Just tell him, get it completed.
Yeah. There you go. The chairman said get it completed.
Go ahead.
I got marching orders here.
The purpose of this meeting is the 2020 budget.
Right.
So what do we put in for 2020?
Depends on if we give
I think we try to
district
put in,
established.
I mean, usually we put in $8,000.
Well, that's what I'm saying, you know,
Yeah.
do we put in the normal amount, maybe a little bit more, and then if there's a special assessment district, obviously that'll be additional revenue and additional projects that have to be done, but that's not part of the budget process that we're trying to do
Right.
here today. So what do we put in for 2020? Maintain the status quo, put in a little bit more, you know, I'm just looking for some help here, you know, we have to do the budget right now.
What you did last year, you put the status quo and told the dam authority to come back with specific projects.
Okay.
So that's what you have done the last 2 years, I believe.
I think the set aside was 3 projects to a tune of about 20 to 30,000. It wasn't in the budget, but it was
In the
Correct.
contingency.
earmarked.
Yes, we were
And I
going to
I don't
transfer
think
it as
that's a
things
bad
happen.
strategy, it doesn't have to go in the budget. What we're looking at is something that's kind of variable, and it's becoming, like Will says, a little more variable as time goes on, but that's not a bad strategy.
But by the first of the year, we should know. I mean, we have to pass the budget by October 1st, but realistically, once we get the engineering study back, and the dam authority meets, comes up with a project, we can move forward with an assessment district.
We have to have the inspections back,
Yeah, so.
all of them.
So if you could follow up on that and keep us
Well, Pat,
updated.
and then the other 2, I'll crack the whip.
Are we still willing to pay for Wi-Fi and the added utilities costs for the next year? Or is that something that we should be looking at now?
It's up to you.
If it's already in place, then it cannot be part of the assessment? Is that correct?
The cost to, yes, the maintenance of that can be, but not the cost, we can't recoup our costs. for it.
Future maintenance could be.
Yeah.
So if we can
Yeah.
get this in place, we could get it, part of that special assessment, as we pay them, then it would cover it. But we're gonna pay for them up until that point. But I'm saying, but my point was, I don't want the county paying 50% of that when that's really all about the lake and the Lake Association and what they want, and what they've done, and what they volunteered to even do.
Well,
So-
we're paying 100% of that right now.
I know. So, I don't know, are you suggesting we remove the internet?
I am suggesting that.
What are the ramifications?
It's my understanding when we approved that there was some staff savings in terms of staff time. And one of the justifications for going forward with that project was it saved Gary's time. Correct?
That is correct, but also they're saying because of that now, at least according to Mr. Popa, that he wants to try to get someone at least part-time because, so that we can get it more accurate. And so he's saying we need more help now because of this.
Those are his personal views, not the views of the dam
Right, that's not
authority.
the, all right. it's-
Just want to make sure that we clear that up, so.
So, I mean, is it or isn't it,
Jerry.
Yeah, Jerry, go ahead.
The spectrum internet is separate from the sensing system. Okay. We put in the spectrum thing, so I've got cameras that I have to put in yet, 2 cameras in the bracket, and that way I can access and see what's going on down there from here, my phone. But that's our own system for the county, because we own the dam. The sensing device is part of the Lake Association's system, not ours. Okay, it's to help us create information to give to you to maybe make adjustments to the lake or whatever down the road that we're trying to get information with that. But I don't have, I look at it, but it doesn't dictate how I control the dam. To me, it's always been 2 separate things. That sensing stuff is not anything that me as the county dam guy wanted or asked for. That was the dam authority brought that up. Okay, so there's a separation there. Does that answer your question, Emily?
Yeah, Steve.
I'll add on, if I may, to what Jerry is saying too. As we were looking at longevity in the county, I know the clerk is ahead of us and Jerry's ahead of me, and I'm nipping at their heels. So none of us are going to be long-termers. We need to look at where are we going from here. Jerry has his 30-plus years experience doing what he's doing, tagged on to Ozzie Cordes, which is like a 50-year experience, and he's got all of that written down. He's got it in his head, he's got it in his gut level. he can do this dam level adjustment almost like breathing for him. It's just muscle memory, it's a total memory. What we do with the sensors is we match what Jerry's doing with data so we can see how he manipulated the dam with these types of scenarios. So we have a body of work that we can sit down with Dwayne or the next person that's going to do it and say, okay, here's what Jerry did when it did this, here's what Jerry did when it did this, and we have a body of work to go from. So, you know, manipulating the dam is not real simple. Trying to get water out of the south end, which Jerry's been struggling with for 3 years, with all of the wet that we had, created a situation where he's anticipating storms, and he's dumping water at night and bringing it up in the day, dumping at night, bringing it. It's just something that's been an ongoing learning experience, but he is very good at it, and we need to capture that so that moving forward we can have something to work with. That was a strong impetus as to what we did those sensors for. It wasn't frivolous, it's something we need as a dam authority. And the Lake Association bought and put them in. So that was a plus. I mean, they want this information too. It's to their best interest, to our best interest in doing our job effectively and well. So, and Jerry, yeah, he doesn't necessarily have to watch that screen every day because he knows he's already on his way to do a change. So.
What we have to have, the county has to have some support if there's any decision down the road to maybe raise or lower the lake levels already in court order. This information that they're gathering, that is gathered on these sensors, can support any decision or any information we want to carry towards the change, if we want to make a change. Right now, it's just, you know, what I say and what I write down, but they have graphs and things that basically the court need to see that, so it will support a decision, will say to lower the level for the summer or raise the level for the summer. That's the biggest thing too, is we have a paper trail for that.
Thank you.
So
Let's
it's
look
real
back
close.
to Commissioner Answorthy's question. You know, are we going to keep it the same in the budget? Or are we going to?
I just think we should just keep it the same, and we'll make adjustments if and when something changes on a project basis. Does that make sense?
It does, but I do think we have to add some to contingency for these things, because I think the county's going to be 100% responsible until we get this SAD in place. All right. I think, is there any other questions or anything? You're crazy. Board? The damn authority? No? Good. All right, we'll move on then in our agenda. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
I am not.
I got
Did you, Jerry? Yes, that's a good idea.
What are we breaking?
We'll take a 5-minute break here.
Maybe chocolate time.
I remember what it was now. It was the Glen Lake Lake.
I'm glad you're sitting next to her.
Yeah. Thanks. You still don't have peachy.
Oh, where'd she? Oh, she was just here.
I know.
Well, that's okay, we'll just move on and she'll have to catch up.
Let me see if she's in the hallway.
She didn't hear the gavel.
Register of deeds.
Item 4.
All right.
Well, we're going to skip item 4.
All right.
Yeah, we don't have the information about it, and so we'll just put that on for the next time.
Well, there was
just
a
to talk about
request.
it.
There was a request, and I'm the same person requesting we put it on Friday's
Oh,
budget
okay.
meeting because I ran off without my budget book and all the materials were in
Okay.
there. And I apologize.
And what it is, just a brief update. What a brief update is, we have a retiree that's requesting cost of living increase on MERS. Is that
Right.
correct?
A number of them, yeah.
Yeah, on behalf of the retirees.
So
We don't have a history of
That I
doing
put on the
that.
budget hearing.
We did do it it must be
We've
10
done
years ago or so.
We've done it about 5 or 6 times, but not to the specific group that's in question. And I have all that documentation and can present it on Friday if you'd like.
So Friday's agenda then?
Because it's in my book too, and so say I do apologize to
Well, you
everybody
wouldn't
because
have
I just,
access
I
to
had
it,
it all
I've
to
got
bring
it.
and then ran off without the book.
Okay.
Why are we being asked to entertain that idea?
Because it has to go into the budget.
If it's going to happen.
If you wish to do it.
By us, right?
You don't have to do it.
Uh-huh.
So we'll wait until Friday and make up our minds.
Thank you. All right.
Are we
That takes
on-
care of number 4. So now,
Thank you, boss.
now we're up to number 5.
All right, based on last week's discussion, I met with everyone who was on this list and talked about some things you said you wanted to this year. The Marine Division boat, I informed the sheriff, it's not in the budget, that the board will make a decision if they get the grant. And as of today, there's still been no word on whether the grant has been awarded or not awarded. In terms of the sheriff's inmate housing, the camera system, I talked to Todd, the sheriff, and undersheriff, and they all agreed they could do it over a several-year period. They said 15,000 would be fine, and they would talk to the sales rep. And I'm sure those fees they talked about if we didn't go forward with the project would be waived because we are going forward partially and so forth. So he was very grateful and said they could do it over a 2-year period. On the, let's see, next one is, well, this was on the agenda this morning on the AEDs with the defibrillators. So we're going forward with that this year. On the lien, I think we all said yes to that. You said yes to this. On the replacement of the general towers,
Approve that.
yes, we got that done. Prove that. Mac will talk to tribal officials about the upgrade on the Pashabi Tower. So let's hold off on that one until he has an update on where we are with that dialogue. On the Motorola Dispatch Council, that's already in the budget. On the 2 tower amps, he said he can wait till next year, to 2021 on that. That's not a critical point, so he can wait for that year. I think you agree to put the capital outlay projects for the striping into the budget. I think Michelle's going forward with that. And you have not made a decision on the probate family court.
Or the register of deeds.
On the register of deeds, but I'm saying just off this memo.
Right.
No, off the memo.
Well, I did not hear anything today that made me think that my discussion last week of taking a half a position from Register of Deeds and putting that in the court would not be a bad idea. I remain concerned about liability issues for the backlog on the court cases. And I think our data supports it. Maybe not overstaffed, but could do with less. So that would still be my recommendation.
Have we looked at other departments that may be able to do that same thing? Or have we just targeted Register of Deeds for that? Have we had any other input from any of the other departments?
Go ahead.
I did not look at others. I don't know if anybody else did. But for me, when I walk down the hallway, I see traffic patterns. When I see people late in the afternoon, I see some offices busier than other offices. I saw a possibility in Register of Deeds, and I think we talked about it a year ago, when I think that in terms of our comparisons on staff numbers, we're at the high end on that. I think some counties, maybe not as many as I thought, have tried to merge into the clerk and the Register of Deeds. It seems to me we could do it, and I didn't hear anything today that I'd be open to discussion on other offices.
Well, my concern is, you know, if we do pull that person from the Register of Deeds office, and now it puts that department in a quandary, you know, as well. We're gonna have to pull that person back out of the courts and put them back in Register of Deeds. And now we're, you know, putting the problem back to the courts. And I did ask, if you recall last week, about the judge accessing temporary part-time staff, not necessarily for court-specific items, you might say, but, you know, they have not had an opportunity to access that temporary help that we have available for answering the phones or meeting somebody at the counter that may not involve, I don't know what they do up there, but you know what I'm saying? She hasn't explored that, and when I presented that, she kind of paused and thought about that and said she hadn't looked into that. So I'm just wondering if at this point, maybe we should have a little more time as far as determining if we can pull somebody out of Register of Deeds or another department, for that matter, and help cross-train, if you might say, or can we actually solicit a temporary staff person who has court experience?
Well, another option, I'm not sure how this will impact, but Susan Richards, she just announced she's retiring.
Right.
Is she looking at potential restructuring of duties and responsibilities now that there's a vacancy there?
Right.
I mean, I don't know.
Could she work as a temporary 1 or 2 days a week after her position is filled? I mean,
But then just overall, with this key person retiring, is the judge looking at other options, staffing options? I don't know. We just found out that Ms. Richards is going to retire. So I don't know if that's a factor. I don't know if she's thought this through yet or not. I know she just got her letter last week from her.
Right.
So I'm not sure. So maybe we should ask her to come back Friday and ask her if the retirement will make a difference in her staffing structure. I know at one time she talked about restructuring the duties and responsibilities. I don't know if she's had a chance to even think about that.
I'm wondering if you might query her in an email so that she has some time to think about it, and maybe she can come back to us with a different idea. But like I said, you know, if we target a temporary person who might have court experience, I mean, that could be a good fit to see if we can't get the courts back where they need to be as far as catching up because of all of the absences in the prior years, and make sure she's got the help that she needs. I really hate to cut that budget today. The numbers, I think, are pretty close. We haven't looked at other departments where we could maybe cross-train someone, and I think that would be a mistake. So that's kind of where I'm at with that.
Commissioner Ritz.
Well, I think that, you know, to cut a position, you're going to fall into the same situation as you have with the courts, where adding it back in is going to be another problem. So I'm not sure that cutting a position is the right way to go either. However, I don't think that, you know, as Dorothy said today, that somebody just answering the phone in the courts is really going to take that much pressure off the work that she needs to have accomplished. You need to have a person that has a certain skill level that will be able to accomplish those. Same thing at the Register of Deeds. If you put a temporary in there and they ask to be, you know, a record to look up, what do they say? Dorothy, can you look up the record for, you know, you have to pass it along, you know, to somebody else. So it's really not a savings. I think to put a temporary in and just have somebody answering the phones in the courts, I really think that they need help. Judge Nelson's letter that we got, I don't know, it's online or it's here today, you know, saying the same thing. We need more help up there. And I don't know, Michelle, can you weigh in on any of this, or it's not your district court?
My involvement with them is a little bit with the neglect and abuse, the adoptions, and the delinquency in the juvenile cases. I file all those through my office, collect all the money through them, but the position she is talking about is specifically much more probate as opposed to family, and my interaction with those through my offices are adoptions. And like I said, neglect and abuse, and I kind of have an arrangement with them with the adoptions that I've had for years, that they do that as opposed to necessarily transferring it all to me, because all you do then is you start shifting people for me to start taking on adoptions and the specialty work that goes with adoptions. So that's, you know, I do much more with the family court side of that.
Okay. Can I ask you another question about your office? If you took back the passports, would you have to have another person, or would you be able to?
The reason that passports left my office, and I had asked Dorothy, and they wanted, in the Register of Deeds office, they liked it was something different than just, not just, but I've been doing deeds, the same thing every day. I would have to limit the people that can do passports because there's, a second, 6 people that do vitals and have access to vitals. I only have one person that doesn't have access to vitals, and that would be the only person that could probably do passports.
But just a point of clarification, the Register of Deeds does not process the passports. They simply give the application and review it. They don't accept
It still
them.
goes to the State Department.
It goes-
Right.
No, I mean, the Secretary of State does it, post offices do it.
Right.
But if someone comes in to Register of Deeds, they get the application, they can review it for them, but they don't accept it, they don't accept payment for it, they don't process it.
Well,
So that's one you.
they get it all in the
The
process.
pulls are done in the post
on
office,
to-
so.
But any office can do
Yeah.
that. I'm just a little limited because I actually issue birth records, and somewhere in the United States it was fraud, so they put all of Michigan into a blanket. So if my court people were in a separate office, then yes, I could very easily take it back. But it does take time. There's no doubt it takes time. I'm still in the passport world as far as pictures.
Right.
But, for me, it can go anywhere. But I mean, it was just a welcome.
In some counties, actually, it's in the administrator's office.
Yeah.
Because we don't accept them. We simply review them just to make sure they apply properly. So I just want to clarify that.
So do you think the administrator's office would be willing to take on passports?
We could.
That might, he's up for it,
No, seriously, we could do that.
I'm just trying to balance, who's doing what.
Well, actually, Laurel used to do passports in my office for 15, 20 years.
And I say that because we've actually had a discussion about that at some point. If, based on what you wish to do, could that duty be transferred to a different office? Yes, it's not mandated that it has to be part of the Register of Deeds office, just so you know that. And nor do people actually formally turn them in there. Their role simply is an advisory capacity, just as our role would be. The Secretary of State office and the post office, they actually accept them. Because I had one for my daughter, I had to quickly get it through it. I went to the post office, they helped me get through it.
Right.
Well, I agree with Commissioner Wessel here. I mean, if you look at, they just handed us the Register of Deeds revenues. In the recording fees, which she talks about, are actually down even from 2013, from 2017, and it's more than the other years. But so the recording fees are not going up so considerably. And when you go to copy fees that they do, they've only increased $1,000 over 2013. So you're talking, and now she's going more animated. When you look at the website, it's continually, well, it's gone up. It isn't continually, but it has gone up some from previous years. So, and that's something that the Register of Deeds, really, it's all on the web.
Right.
So it doesn't look like they're, that if I look at that their business is increasing so much. And when you look at the number of people, we are the highest, and there, I did point out one, she talked about, the passports and how much time that consumes, but yet in Mason County, so they had the same thing, and pretty much the same stuff, and they had fewer people, they had 3.
Right, no, I highlighted that too.
So I'm thinking that, I think that half a person there, if we went to 3.5, we're still at the high of all of those there. And we're definitely not at the high of the number of transactions. And it doesn't look like it's been, and they've also eliminated from them taking care of all the, the points. Yeah, the remonument points, she completely eliminated that from her office.
Right.
So I do think there's some time there that they're not, and if, yes, maybe she could use 4 in the summer, but all through the winter, they probably could get by with two, you know?
A question. I
Yes.
see passport pictures, but I knew the clerk's office did that, and I'm confused why that's in the revenues here.
We're both running the numbers for passport photos. So when someone comes in, if it's just a renewal passport, I collect the fee. If she's actually processing the passport in her office, I'll take it down, and then she'll collect the money for the passport fee when she collects the local agent processing fee. There's a fee that goes with these applications to the state, and then there's an internal processing fee that stays with the office and for the county to process new applications that can't be processed as renewals. So we're both claiming passport fees. This is the ones that she'll collect on my behalf. It's just easier for the customer to do that.
But Michelle, people don't actually submit their application, do they?
They do, and what they do is
they
they
do?
submit an application, they have to do photographs, they have to do
Yeah.
supporting documentation, and they make sure it's okay. You used to have to put a seal, I'm not sure because I haven't done them in a few years, and then they take those and they do have to deliver them to be mailed, usually by priority mail. They usually do them out daily on a daily basis.
Jim just did his, and he had to bring out the handwritten paperwork, he brought it home, filled it out, and mailed it.
If it was a renewal,
It was a renewal.
and it's a renewal you can process at home, technically local agents don't do renewals, but as a courtesy, a lot of times you will review that. There are no fees that come to you other than our passport fees, but you mail them to the state for actual processing. But you're the first leg in the step to go on. So, and sometimes it can be challenging. You have to know, are you looking at good birth certificates, you know, so on and so
I
forth.
see.
But, you know, to follow that up, I also think that with, especially now with Susan leaving, that she's going to need the extra help there. I do believe that we could put a half a person in there, and I'm not saying that's a half a person from the Register of Deeds. I'm just saying she gets her own half a person, and we have 3.5 there instead of 4. And I think that would be, we would be protecting ourselves against, you know, the liability that may be created by all the documents that didn't get done. And I don't know why, you know, they weren't done, and I not want to blame, you know, Judge Nelson or whatever, but they didn't, and they need to be, it needs to be taken care of. So I mean, I think if we, and she seemed amiable to a part-time person there, you know, but she wanted to be a definite person, and if we make a half-time position, they're not changing it out on a regular basis with the temporaries, you know, so that way somebody could be trained and go there. So, and I think that helps with our budget, in fact, that we don't add more people to it, and overall, we've kept it the same.
What,
Commissioner Lautner.
One other time we tried to split a position, and it didn't work because one was union and
Yeah.
one was not
Yeah.
union.
Yeah.
And I'm not
This does
suggesting.
not-
We have to be careful, when we talk about positions, one thing, we can't talk about people and splitting them, because you're right, there's union contracts in place.
Right.
In terms of seniority, but also you cannot have a person half union and half non-union. So we gotta talk about positions, not about people.
So is there a possibility with this position, there is one person who that might work?
In theory, it could be.
In theory? Okay.
so my question is that if you hire a person who's a half-time person, can that person work, say 4 hours a week during the summer, and then 2 hours a week, you know what I'm saying, during the winter? Can you call them in for different hours
Yes.
at different times of year?
I'm sure you can.
Yes.
Oh, so that would make all kinds of
Could be
sense.
just the summer, or, you know.
For that office, I still think that the judge needs a full-time person, but.
Well, you know, she seemed, at least the way I interpret what she said, she would be happy if she had a half-time person. I mean, yes.
Based on my discussion, she'd prefer a full-time person,
Yes.
but would be grateful for a half-time person.
I do support that as well. I do think she needs a little help up there. But my concern is with a full-time person, that she may not need a full-time person all the time, you know.
Right.
So I'm not opposed to a half-time person. I do think that they need some help.
You could do it I'm just going to half-time for X period of months, even a year, and then have her report back next year at this time.
Exactly.
So that way you're not making a long-term commitment.
Right.
And you're open to review after
1
12
year.
months or
Yeah.
however.
Potentially increasing it to a full-time position if
By the
needed.
budget time next year.
Well, and I think that we need to look at, I mean, she talked about the problem with how much time they take off. You know, when they're taking off 30, 40 days a year, you know, that when we do negotiations, you know, for the contracts, we need to really consider that. Because if it's causing problems, and this is not the first time I've heard that people are taking time off and then things get backed up, that we need to look at that, you know. It's, maybe we are too generous with that.
She cited what, vacation days, 20 days, and bereavement
Personal days.
Personal days,
Personal
10 days, and then you have holidays on top of that. Is there another
Bereavement.
7 days that you get paid for? Or 7 or 8 or 9?
That's not unique to that office, so that's.
No, I know, that's what I'm saying. That's why I'm saying when we look at our contracts, you know, that's something that we need to really consider.
I think it's more how it gets managed. You know,
Right.
maybe her office, they don't take them too
Well-
close to the same time or something.
Well, they do, they all want them in the summer.
So where are we? Let's see, where are we
But
at?
anyway, I'm sorry. So, I mean, but I'm trying to get it settled about the judge's office and the register of deeds, because those are two things that we still have hanging on the budget that we haven't really decided on. So,
Why didn't we, as far as Register of Deeds office, when I look at the numbers, it doesn't look like she's that far out of line, but she does look like she might be staff heavy. So while I wouldn't support the elimination of a full person out of that, I think I could support the elimination of a half person and put it upstairs at least until, you know, the whole Susan position gets ironed out.
yes.
And there again, I'm not opposed to that idea either. And like, we can reevaluate this in a year's time
Exactly.
to see if we have severely diminished the services that the Register of Deeds office provides. So I think that might be a good way for us to go. We do need that help in the courts, and maybe we do have an opportunity here. If not, you know, and in the meantime, I would suggest that the administrator kind of keep an eye on staffing levels, you know, if we need to, you know, make a reduction in another department, you know, if the court needs full-time, can we take another half-time position from a different department going forward? So I'll support both myself.
I guess I just don't like the idea of saying, you know, we're gonna take half from here and give half to there. I think we're talking,
That's why I tried to.
Yeah.
okay, we're talking about
You
two
can't do
different,
that.
completely
Yeah.
different things. I'm okay if we talk about two
So let me
different
just
things.
look, you're talking about two separate things. You're talking
Right.
about creating a one-year half-time position in the courts,
Yeah.
right? And then also, independently of that, reducing the staffing level at the Register of Deeds by 0.5.
Mhm.
But the two are not linked together,
Okay,
Exactly.
right?
all right.
Just so, I thought you were all
Yeah.
clear.
Yes, we say it would have to be, what do you call it, posted and all that.
Right.
Commissioner Sudisley.
So technically, since we're talking positions, and there's a reduction, but there's a full-time position there now, with a person filling that full-time position. So that position.
The one for Susan's position?
No,
For
I'm talking
Register of
about
Deeds.
Register of
Okay.
Deeds. There's a full-time position and somebody in that position.
Mhm.
So we're talking about making that a half-time position. And it's up to the Register of Deeds to decide how to.
No, it's by union contract. It's the least senior employee in that office.
Okay,
They would go down
Person would-
50%, but they would lose their benefits.
okay.
No, it's because that's a union position.
Okay.
The court is not a union position. So the person with the least seniority, Register of Deeds, would be reduced to 50%. That person would have the right to apply for the job, but that'd be up to the job, well, if that person wished to apply for a job, and if that person was selected for the position. The two are not linked.
Yeah, it would have nothing to do
That's
with
completely independent.
I
Okay,
understand, just following the sequence of what will happen.
If you remember that situation with David Worm, we actually had 3 separate positions, all 3 were posted. It just happened he was the only one that applied. But that's the 3 separate positions.
Right.
I think this is what the administrator said, but I just want to be very clear. The person that would fill the position in Register of Deeds, or whatever office, that person is not compatible to combine with the court.
Right.
Yeah, we're not talking about combining
I
any
just want to
positions.
make sure you understand that person cannot hold those two. Those are not.
That's why
Yeah.
I don't like having this
Okay.
conversation
We're
at the
talking
same
about separate
time.
entities, yeah.
Okay, so like, let's just talk about the Register of Deeds. How many people are in favor of like having a half-time position? Are we allowed to ask that question? And because we're having a discussion and not a vote?
Right, well, that's,
Okay, I can go along with that.
right, so that's, I guess that, would we need a motion to, or is
This
this?
is a
Is this a
budget.
budget, so we
Budget
can't
time.
really vote on it, we
So-
can't do it.
Right.
So it's something that we're giving direction to.
So based on your comments, you're asking the clerk to add a half-time position in the courts. You're asking the clerk to reduce in the budget the Register of Deeds position by half-time position, right?
And that's what I was referring to, the budget, not necessarily the position. I was
Right.
referring to the budget.
Right.
But I don't know, other than, and maybe MERS, I don't know that we have any other item that we have hanging, yes.
If I may, I have one request back to the sheriff's department. In his overtime budget, I would like detail breaking out how many hours he's included for special events and what special events are included in the budget.
All right. All right, I can ask that.
And if I may add to
Commissioner
that,
Wenzel had his
oh,
hand.
I'm sorry.
And we're going to hold off on Parks and Recreation part-time position until we find out where Gary.
Yeah, we may have an opportunity there. I was thinking, this just came up after our discussion. And I talked to Jerry, so I'm not surprised at him. I asked him if we were to get Gary more hours here. In theory, that would free up Jerry to do other things, which in theory would free up Dwayne, which would free up for the parks. So can Dwayne go and help Scott? And the answer is yes, if we get Gary here on a regular basis, or a semi-regular basis. So that's what I'm thinking.
Commissioner Rushing.
I wanted to add to Commissioner Ansardi's request to also include on the overtime requests, if there's any reimbursements from the special events.
Yeah, I think you might have, one of the emails when I responded to Commissioner Ansari, I responded to all of you. There were 23, I'm going top of my head, 6 of them were reimbursed for.
Oh.
The sheriff made a decision. I can give the specific numbers. I'm on top of my head. There were 90-some special events in the county. 23 of them requested assistance. The sheriff approved 6 of them, where he assigned deputy to. Those people were invoiced and billed back and paid. I think that's what you're looking for, right?
It is,
Yeah.
yeah, because then it would not be a direct cost from the county.
Yeah. He actually pointed out, some of them, when we invoiced them back, we based it on the highest seniority level amount for overtime. But if we send some of the junior officers, which we do most time, it actually is a bit of a savings and builds a little cushion in the
Sure.
budget.
Commissioner Ansari.
I want to make it clear that my asking for that information is in relation to the special events. And that the way it's set up right now, the sheriff is making determinations on providing people with these special events without any input from the board.
Correct.
He is.
I'm just,
He has that authority.
so, I myself, I look at any time that if the sheriff is being reimbursed, that money is coming back to the county, that's a money issue that should have gone through us, in my opinion.
The response is, and you have a legal opinion from Mr. Cole, as long as he stays within his budget. If he asks for additional dollars, that's to the board, but as long as he stays within the budget, his authority to assign personnel as he chooses.
But basically, I have a problem with the Iron Man, for example, where we had sheriff deputies out there being yelled at people because they weren't being let through when they wanted to get through, and in this case, unlawfully, not being allowed through. I think those should have been, those types of requests should be coming through the board. So I'm looking at this from a budget issue to say, tell me how much you're putting in there for each, what type of special events, and we can have the discussion of whether we're going to include those dollars in the budget or not. That's where I'm coming from.
Commissioner Sutis-Little, you had
I was going to, actually, our administrator answered the question I was going to ask. I knew that as an elected position, I was hearkening back to our orientation session and wondering what those relationships were. I knew we had budgetary responsibility.
Yeah,
And
Tony's
that's what
correct.
you're
For
relating it to.
example, there's an officer assigned to Northport Township, or Leelanau Township. That came with a budget request. This contract, the board had to approve that. It's a long-term commitment.
Right.
But for assignment for special events or anything, as long as he stays within the staffing levels and within the budget, the board has no authority. He can assign people where he chooses. And it does not mean he endorses the concept. Obviously, he was quite critical of the Iron Man, for example. But he did it from a perspective of public safety. Instead of being reactive and trying to respond to calls, he felt it was better to be proactive to assign, I believe, 6 officers to the event to help. And then those would be reimbursed. So 6 times this year, we have been reimbursed.
And in that process of reimbursement, we're only capturing salaries.
Nope, no.
You're including the cost of vehicles, equipment,
I believe-
administrative time, all of that?
That's what Undersheriff Morgan told me.
The clerk is shaking.
I don't know,
right
I'm
now.
just telling you what Undersheriff Morgan
We'll
told me.
report to you at the next meeting, because we've got the billings, and I don't remember. I
My
don't
point
know what the
is,
billings.
if we are, just like when we are providing a deputy to another municipality and they're paying for it, we charge them for everything associated with that deputy. We should be including the full cost of having a deputy at a
Well,
special event.
we can check into
We'll
that.
check it, because I give them a bill out of my office, but they could be maybe adding costs that they know of that we don't, so we just need to see the bill, and that's easy enough to, I just don't recall doing administrative time. Do you, Darcy?
I'm not sure about administrative time, but the total
It's usually just the
compensation.
deputies' hours and wages, but not cars and stuff like that.
They're probably not cars, I don't think.
So it's, yeah.
And that's my point is, if we're going to be reimbursed, we should be reimbursed for the full costs that the county is incurring.
We can look that up for you. That's an easy one.
Okay, so then, yes, Commissioner.
I take a little different view than Tony on, I don't want to second guess the sheriff when we need to provide coverage for a special event. I trust that he's going to know how much and what it cost him. And I don't think this body ought to review each request for special request.
Well, legally, the sheriff has an authority, and you have a legal opinion on that. And it's a very common practice through all counties in the state of Michigan. The sheriffs have that authority. They're basing it on public safety.
So my question is, whether we get reimbursed or not, he still has that.
As long as he stays within his personnel level and his budget level. Now, obviously, if he went out every weekend and did this, and it was over his budget, that would become an issue.
Right.
As long as he stays within this budget and does not hire special people, that's a decision of his office,
Right.
not of the board. That's why if we have a special contract with Leelanau Township, that changes his personnel staffing level. that's for it has to come to the board.
I certainly understand where Tony's coming from, I'm sorry, Mr. Answorthy's coming from, you know, to be reimbursed by these special events. However, we have to keep in mind that if the sheriff determines that it's a safety issue, we're going to pay for it, whether the special event pays for it or not. So.
I mean, I think if we wanted to try to control it in any way, which I'm not really in favor of, but we would have to do it in our budget. We would have to say no overtime or something like that, which probably wouldn't fly anyway because there's lots of emergencies where he ends up with overtime. So, and I don't know how the overtime is. Is it real overtime or is it just past 35 hours? You know?
No, that is real overtime. It's over 40 hours, and then if it's on a holiday, it's double time and a half. And there's lots of calculations that go into computing the overtime for their budget. I mean, it's not just.
That's spelled out in the labor contract.
Yeah, Commissioner Lauder.
I was trying to read the, in our packet on page 75, we had this, the 2019 Leelanau County Sheriff's Office special events. So he has, like, if you look at the Wine on the Water Festival, it has a date, and then it has a 1. So I'm guessing that's 1 deputy, which was Donahue in this case. But then it says regular wages. So is it like, so does that mean that's just the deputy that was on patrol that day, he just covered that event instead?
I'm assuming that, but I don't know that.
All right, because I don't know how to read this, and then there's some columns, there's no headers. So he's got non-available, and several of them. Swimming, Grand Traverse Bay, there's, okay, and there is event pay, so is that overtime?
I assume that'd be outside the
This would
normal
be
shift.
helpful, but we need the header. I don't know how to read this without headers.
We can give you the information for the next meeting. Is
Okay.
that Friday or next Tuesday?
We have a meeting
Whichever.
Friday.
It'd just be useful to have, because I think it's going to answer a lot of these questions. There's 75 in the packet with more information.
All right, so then we're at the next meeting agenda.
So a meeting scheduled, I believe, Friday at 1.
It
And
is.
then
I
Tuesday
know, I have.
at, is that 3, Michelle? Question is, you'll still want to have both meetings?
Yes, I've got one at 1 and one at 3, and I do know.
Friday at 1, Tuesday at 3, right?
Correct. We will not have all these numbers incorporated for Friday. We can do it for Tuesday,
So-
but we will not have.
Is there a reason to have a meeting Friday?
That's what I was going to say, if we could move the MERS to Tuesday too, so we don't have to have a Friday meeting. And just take care of the whole thing on Tuesday, if that makes more sense.
Yes.
I'm real happy with that.
Yeah, I would be happy with that, because I got a conflict for Friday.
Oh, gosh, we're not going to have another meeting on Friday?
Darn.
Now, our meeting number 7 on Friday becomes our meeting number 7 on Tuesday.
So Michelle, by Tuesday, you can incorporate all these
Yes.
requests plus with Bayside today, the budget be ready by Tuesday
Yes,
for hopefully our last meeting.
yes.
All right.
And we'll discuss the remaining
Leave that
things,
time
the
at
sheriff
3
and-
o'clock.
So I want to
Yes,
remind
please.
you, there's only one weekend
Tuesday
between now and Tuesday.
At 3 o'clock.
Yeah.
Is that done?
No Friday.
That's what you're saying, yeah.
The Tuesday, then don't we have will we look at non-union
Yeah,
stuff?
we do that in
Wait a minute.
session.
Okay, but before the budget ends?
In the past, you have just waited till you get into labor negotiations, and we allow for that out of contingency.
Yeah, we recommend you not talk about any wages until we have a chance to go to closed session. Well, we have to get the vote from the unions first. Normally, we
Well,
don't.
we're lowering all the wages by 3% in the courthouse. That's what the plan is.
I won't
so-
even touch negotiations.
Mr. Chairman.
That's our
Tuesday is our BOC meeting.
Yeah, that's why we said 3 o'clock.
I didn't have it on my calendar at that.
That was one of these,
time.
you all
No, I
agreed
just
upon.
somehow zapped it.
We're sorry you got zapped.
Yeah, I know, this is real
Sorry about that.
Zapped yourself?
Yeah, well, I put some other stuff in there. Could we meet a little bit earlier? I know that people don't want to come back twice, never mind.
Yeah, that-
Yeah, so,
I don't think it's gonna take that long of a meeting, so.
30
If we meet
possibly.
earlier, I think we have a lot of dead time between the meetings.
I'm sorry, you with?
I think if we met earlier, we'd have a lot of debt, we'd be done long before the 7 o'clock meeting.
But what are you gonna do at 3:30, 3 o'clock anyway, if it's gonna be a quick meeting?
Well,
You're
I
still
mean,
gonna have
I'm
to-
not sure it will be.
Well, we'll go till 4 or 5 and get something to eat.
I was just wondering, if we can move it to 2:30
I'll bring some
instead of 3.
cucumbers.
Yeah, well,
Well, yes, it's a moving.
Jeans.
What?
Jeans,
could
okay.
could we just have a review of what is going to be on that Tuesday meeting? Because I had written down Parks and Rec, Health Department, Sheriff, MERS. I don't know, what's the rundown?
That was going to be on Friday, so we've done that, but Tuesday's going to be sort of our final for wrapping it up, I'm hoping. That's what I was thinking.
Okay, so those 4 special things, and then in addition to that, the wrap-up
Yeah.
on Thursday. I mean,
Not
Tuesday.
next Tuesday.
Tuesday.
Tuesday, sorry, Tuesday.
What do
Okay.
you think? I'm hoping everything will be finalized by then.
I think we can hit the Tuesday night.
You will,
We will have our decisions made.
right.
They gotta do their
So,
work.
you're deciding on Parks and Rec, you're deciding on Health Department, you're deciding on MERS, or you're talking about that, and what's your next one?
Sheriff?
Can you do Parks and Rec right now?
Past the part of it, but I guess.
Well, but this is just a budget, this is not a formal meeting.
So we could maybe go back to Friday with all those things.
Well, or,
No.
No, I
is it
think
not?
Friday.
well, can you decide Parks and Recs right now? You're not gonna
Just
get any
deleted it
more
from my
information.
I deleted it.
Unfortunately, I did that for
Sure, what do you want to know? Oops.
Go ahead.
I think if we can do that with Gary, I think that's a win-win for Parks and Recreation, because.
On that personnel request.
Because if we hire a part-time person for Parks and Recreation, by the time we need them, they probably left and found a full-time job, and then we're looking again.
Right.
So I would say, let's assume that's going to work, and that sounds our Parks and Recreation.
What about the rest of their budget though?
I think
That's the
they're
biggest
asking,
question
I
right
think
now.
they're asking for too much.
I do too.
Sorry, Commissioner.
So I thought we approved the amount for the Grub Shack, but I thought it was coming out of this year's budget.
No, it's for 2020. It will not start until 2020. We
Okay,
approved the
so
contract.
they've only used like $7,000 year-to-date out of their 30, whatever that budget was. So I think they're asking for too much also. And
Can I just interject here before you get too far on this Parks and Rec thing? The Grub Shack was approved. There was hopes that it could be done this year, and then the money was in the budget. If the money is in the budget and it does not get spent, that money's going to roll to the general fund. Since it was approved in this year, if there is not enough funding in next year's budget, we're going to ask for a transfer because you have approved for that to happen. We're not going to let that department be double billed if that gives you any comfort level.
It doesn't.
But I just want to make sure that you know that we're not going to allow them to spend allocated funds on something different than what you approved, okay?
Right, well, and that's what I'm thinking, we keep the budget the same, and if the Grub Shack thing, whatever it is, that would go into the contingency, but we don't put it into their regular budget. Because what happens if we put it in the regular budget, then next year they start with that amount, and it goes up again. So I think, we can provide for it, but we don't put it into the budget.
here.
Would that make sense?
Yes, it does.
So keep the budget status quo?
Yes.
Everyone, Michelle, do you have that?
As presented.
No.
No.
Status quo for
18.
same as 2019.
2019 budget will be
Repeated.
the same for 2000.
So you're going to drop them by 9,000, lower them by 9,000?
What page are you on?
I'm on 76, 79, internal services.
Well, Michelle, what was the amount allocated for Parks and Recs for 2019?
Okay, so
That's the question.
$154,071,
For this year.
correct,
So they're saying keep it the same, no increase.
okay?
So
Right?
what's going to go, what are you saying, you're not going to give them the 9 or?
Well, there was an increase in repair and maintenance of 10,000,
But Will suggested,
and contractual services, so something else was reduced in here. Salaries went down a little bit, and hospitalization, because we didn't have that part-time person in here. But you have to remember that even if you're going to swap out help from this building to help at the parks, those wages for any hours spent over there are going to be charged to that budget. It doesn't get to be charged to building and grounds over here and go over there for free.
But still, say, overall, in the big picture, we have opportunity.
so Will's suggestion was to leave it the same, but do what with the additional?
The additional 9,000 and put that in contingency for the grub shack or whatever is supposed to happen next year.
So they could come back to the board at that point and ask.
So in
right?
other words, so in 2020, September, hey, we can get it done, they're going to ask for that 10.
Right.
They would have that option.
I'm still confused then, because I think we've approved the 30,000, the 28,000. We're not going to spend that until next year, but we're going to spend it out of this year's budget next year.
No.
Well,
No.
Did the 45,000 that you were budgeted for 2019, did that include the grub shack? The grub shack?
I believe so.
So you have a $45,000 request for 2020
Capital outlay.
for capital outlay.
So that's why.
Is that grub shack in that amount also?
Probably, so that's why
Yes,
there's
I think
20
it
and
is,
19
yes.
is because it can't get it
So
started.
if you leave it there, then it won't, you've already approved to have it done. So if we know that it's in there and it's not going to be done on in 19, we wouldn't have to do a transfer if that's left at the 45,000.
Yeah. Only if they wanted to do a second grub shack, for example.
It was in the second grub shack,
They
you'd
would
have to come back to the board.
So just keep the budget the same for 2020 as for 2019.
And so the second grub shack would be the Miles Kimberly, the old lines.
If
building.
it happens.
Got it.
Does that make sense?
Or the walking path. I mean, maybe we'll get the grub shack done, the walking path will have to wait,
Yeah.
even though.
But
I-
that's up to the Parks and Recs to make that
I know.
decision.
I've just been pushing for that walking path for a long time.
Okay, so that's off the agenda for our next
Okay.
meeting, right?
All right.
Okay.
On the health department, they asked for 5%. We suggest they go to 3 and do a special request. I have not received anything from them yet. We'll check on that. But you want 3% in the budget increase, and hopefully they will come with a request for a special project. That's the way we left it with them, right?
We're talking about the digitalization.
Yeah, I haven't received anything yet, but we'll do that on Tuesdays. So no meeting Friday. Tuesdays at 3 o'clock?
Sorry.
Did we agree to?
We could move all of Tuesdays to Fridays.
No.
I don't think you need support there. So on Tuesdays, we'll have talk about the health department, about the retiring MERS, the overtime for the sheriff's budget. What else? We sell the Parks and Recs. The dam authority, we're gonna keep the same until we get more information, knowing we may have to revise that at some point, but for now, so Michelle can go forward. No salary increases of any kind at this point. Correct? We're all on the same. And we resolved everything on this list of special requests now.
Anything else? So then, is there any public comment?
Oh, I'm
Oh,
sorry.
Go ahead, I'm sorry, I didn't see your hand
The
up.
parking lot paving is in?
Yeah, the 30,000,
Paving is in, okay.
we put that in there, yes.
All right.
I think it's 36.
Oh, whatever.
35 yards, okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
sorry.
yeah, it is 36,000, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Thank you.
Commissioner comments? All right.
I'm really
All right, we
disappointed
are
at
adjourned.
I'm meeting on Friday.
Well, somebody-
Peach, oh, Peach wants to come Friday.
She was-
Michelle and I will be here Friday, you're
I
more
wasn't